Hey guys, so I have to give you first impressions of this parenting book I'm reading because it is just so amazing and it correlates so well with the empowered wife. And so while the empowered wife is very much focused on our marriage, and then ultimately it really does transpire into personal fulfillment and happiness and finding our joy outside of like as our responsibility, not our husbands. But now this book that I'm reading, which I'm only in the middle of it, but I highly suggest it. So I'm going to share some of my takeaways so far, so that if you are like, oh, I kind of relate to this, or I do relate to this, then you can pick up a copy and start listening to it. I love the app Everand, because whenever I have moments like this where a book comes across my eyes or my ears, I can grab it real fast and start listening and seeing, is this something that I want to invest time into. The other option is, of course, the library usually has a great selection, but if it's a popular book, then you have to wait. So, okay, this book. So there is a parenting summit going on right now called Strategic Parenting, and I signed up for it, and there's like 5 days. I think it's still going on right now. You can get some free audio if you want. But I found this doctor who apparently was like on Oprah and things, and she narrates her own books, which is really nice. But she's talking about conscious parenting, and this idea is that when we're parenting, we're really not like parenting our children, we're parenting ourselves. Like, it's not called childing, it's called parenting. And I thought that was really interesting. So she's a psychologist. So some of the takeaways have been, one, a lot of us have reasons why we became parents that are self-focused. Like, why did you really become a parent, right? Maybe it has to do with wanting to feel a baby, or to have a child fulfill you, or to relive your childhood through your kids. So she kind of talks about like how, our children are separate from us and they have their own journey, and it really isn't about us at all. But it's kind of only about us at the same time. The second thing she talks about is the stories we tell. Once we know we're pregnant, or even before we know we're pregnant, we have all these stories and we have these expectations. And so, maybe you want your daughter to be a ballerina. Maybe you want your son to play baseball. Maybe you want your son to be a priest, or your daughter to be a nun. Or, we have these stories. We have these stories about what it's going to look like on family vacations, or where we're going to live, and just all these things. And she's like, your child didn't ask for these stories. They didn't ask to be cast in your drama or your play. They have their own desires and needs and wants, and like, pretty much my takeaway from that part was, if I want my child to do ballet, then I need to go take a ballet class. If I want my child to be an artist, then I need to go pursue art. Like, and just really like not live vicariously through our children. Um, Another thing she talked about was our ideal child versus the reality. So for example, I always wanted to have children that were very polite and good at saying hello, good morning to someone new. And that's because I was really shy. And so I'm like, here's my chance to like prove I'm successful, right? Like, I mean, deep down, I had to kind of pray about this, but deep down, it was like, if my children present themselves to the world in this really like lovely, mature, um, polite manner, that I'm gonna be successful. I'm gonna look good, right? Don't Not about me. It's like, whereas what I should have done was figured out, how can I improve my skills in meeting someone new for the first time. But no, I'm going to put it on my kids. So versus the reality that one of my children, like, my kids are kind of shy, and they're at different ages all the time. So their skills are always changing, and really, like, they may not want to be someone who walks up to a stranger and say hello, and I can't force them to do that. So again, or we homeschool, and I had this like, my children are going to be these like great students like me, like they're going to be real scholastic, and they're going to want to study, and they're going to read really big books, and like, they have their own interests. They do school, and there's another thing I want to talk about in a minute about homeschooling, but they do it, and they enjoy some of it, and they don't enjoy some of it. And it came to me this morning that the reason why I was such a good student is because I had to kind of just be in survival mode, and I could not lose it. I could not drop the ball. Like I had a level of success that I was trying to get to that kept me like here, and I didn't lose my emotions. I kept my cool. So when my kids are at my dining table and they're learning math and they start crying or like having a tantrum, I wasn't ready for that because I'm like, well, that's weird. I just did math. And again, it's this idea of like, well, but why was I so emotionally regulated at school? Was I really emotionally regulated? Like maybe it was, maybe I just liked it. But like again, the expectation of they're having a completely different experience regarding school. And they don't have the same stresses I had. They don't have the same temperament I had. And so why would I expect them to like be, yay, homeschool time? Like there's things they enjoy, but they're also really honest with me. And that's a good thing. And then there's next one was her discussing success and happiness, like wanting our kids to be happy and successful versus presence and experience. And so she talks about how wanting our children to be happy all the time is a huge problem because our children have a range of emotions and all emotions are good. Some emotions are messy. I like that. I like her use of that. Some emotions are more messy, but they're all good. And the idea of having like our children always be happy like isn't realistic and actually sets them up for failure versus telling them they're going to have hard years. Like my mother-in-law recently, I was upset because we had just had this really hard year and I was entering into like my birthday month. This was I think after I quit YouTube. And I called her up and I was like, I don't understand, like this shouldn't be hard. Like I already had a hard year. And she was like, sometimes you have hard years, not just a hard season, but like hard years. And I was like, what? But it actually really helped me to process it and accept it, to be like, oh, okay, my expectation was wrong. Like I might have hard years, not just a hard season. And same with the kids, right? Like they're not going to always be happy. And so if we expect that, and then I'm going to talk about enmeshment in a second. That's where I left off. And then the successful part, of course, I mean, as Catholics, like I think hopefully we're not so worldly that we want our kids to be like, lawyers or doctors or bankers or whatever. Like hopefully we are a little bit more in tune with God's will and their own journey. But sometimes we still can get kind of keyed up with like, oh, I don't want my child to suffer, or I don't want my child to be poor, or I don't want my child to, get a disease in Africa. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that like there probably is a level of I want my child to be happy and successful even within our Catholic faith, like in our Catholic mindset, versus this idea of being present with our kids and walking alongside them and giving them experiences. Do you want to experience ballet? Do you want to experience the ocean? Do you want to experience climbing a mountain or going on a mission trip, and giving them the opportunity to travel and think through things and read different books and be with them and be present, but not the pushing this kind of happy, successful, mindset. And then the last thing I read, and then I will let you go, but I just read the book, you guys. It's so good. Is about emotional enmeshment. And I am so emotionally enmeshed in my kids. And the reason you can tell if you're emotionally enmeshed is that when they get frustrated, you get frustrated. If they're happy, you're happy. If they're sad, you're sad. And it's interesting. I noticed that with Chloe. I don't do that as much. I think because she's always kind of pushed me away from that, like allowing that. She's always been like a more strong-willed child, and there's always been like we're attached, we're close, but she had never allowed me to really enmesh with her. Whereas Neil was like, oh, okay, we're doing this enmeshment thing, cool, okay. And then, but it's gotten really hard ever since he was about 5, when I think he probably tried to get a little more independence. But I was like, no, you're my baby, and we're enmeshed, and like I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. So just today we're at home, we're doing homeschool, we're doing math, and because I'm reading this book, I was able to separate myself from his emotions. Like he has a big emotions during math today. It was like, and like part of me was like, oh no, he's emotionally dysregulated. I need to help him. Like I need to give him a hug or give him a cookie or something, to like calm him down. But really, I just had to show up. And I kind of continued to walk him through the problem. Like I didn't allow him to stop. Like I didn't give in to his emotions. I just allowed him to process his emotions while we continued to do math. And he was able to figure it out. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was such a big moment for both of us that he was allowed, because she's like, in the book, she's like, you have to let your kids like have their own emotional life. because you're not always going to be there. And she talked about the daughter that's calling the mom up multiple times every single day, and they're so enmeshed. And the mom's like, the daughter's going through a divorce, and the mom's like feels like she's going through a divorce because it's just this like enmeshment of emotions. And I don't want that for my kids. I don't want to like, I want them to be able to be in pain and me still to be able to be joyful. And then that is co-regulating, right? That is showing up alongside them. Like if you're spinning out and then your friend like spins out with you, that's not helpful. Like if you're spinning out, you need somebody that's going to be calm and like regulated next to you. And so this book, I'm not even a third of the way through, and it's really given me a lot to ponder, a lot to meditate on. She has great questions at the end. And so if you're like, if something about your relationship with your kids, like if you feel like you're getting triggered, if you feel like you don't know how to handle their emotions, if you feel like you're just not sure like how to like be a parent in like a really beautiful way, then I suggest this book. So I'll link it down below. Okay, Pax Christi, guys. Bye.